And welcome to the latest edition of the 941 Sports Zone, brought to you by Mighty Dog Roofing of Southwest Florida, locally owned, nationally backed, delivering exceptional roofing for homes and businesses across the Gulf Coast. Call them at 941-251-4257. Again, 941-251-4257. You see three of us here tonight. Yes, John Massoni's over on the far right, and in the middle is our buddy Matt Geller from the Florida sports scene. Got a chance to meet Matt when I was down in Venice about 3 weeks ago when we did our media days. And Matt, thank you for taking the time to join us here tonight.
I appreciate the offer. This is really exciting to me. This is my first podcast, so I'm really excited. Thank both of you for this.
Well, Matt, it's you got to remember though. We're probably the podcast that will catapult you now into great heights as far as your publications are concerned and everything else is concerned.
No doubt, yes.
But I was going to ask you to just kind of explain a little bit before we get started what it is you're doing with your publication, how often it comes out, and where we can get it. Also, we can get that out, get out to the public.
Absolutely. So I started this because I know that what the cost that parents have to pay for their kids' tuition when they go to college. And I obviously know having to pay back my student loans. I would prefer that parents not get stuck with a $60,000 bill. So any high school athletes who are, no stars, 1-star, 2-star, I interview them. I have a photographer. We try to get their name out to as many places as possible. I have friends who are coaches and just get them, a platform and through our social media and things like that, so that other coaches can see them and recruit them and just give them an opportunity. Really, the goal is to get these kids, super athletes that are able to go out further and play in college. That's the whole goal.
I guess you and John were together kind of sort of last Friday night down in Miami.
Indeed, we were. We took the show on the road on Friday night, and we rented an Airbnb down in Miami. A friend of mine came in for it started out with Teddy Bridgewater was the coach, and we're both from Michigan, so we're starting the whole Lions thing, and then when he got suspended, it's like, all right, we're going to stay with the trip anyway. So we rented an Airbnb and drove all the way down there and just had 2 good days of weather. And I swear to you on everything, as 7 o'clock comes, here comes the clouds and rain, and they canceled the game. And I talked to John when it's pouring, and he's back on the road. And then I got back on the road, and here we are.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that weather just set up the way it did, and that's unfortunately. And trust me, this is a subject matter I'm going to bring up a little later, Rich. You probably know where I would be bringing that up about the weather.
Probably the last segment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, but yeah, you get that situation, and then the decision has to be made, especially on a game that's far away. A couple hours away. You've got curfews. You've got is it worth the skin to go through all this different stuff? And with the Lightning, there was just too much of it in the area. Every time we thought we were going to get something started, it didn't want to do anything. So yeah, Matt and I were probably about 200 yards apart the entire time that was all taking place. But once they said that it was over, unfortunately that's what happens. And obviously we wait to see. Yeah.
My mediocre meteorologist skills, every time it stopped raining, I'm like, okay, here we go, and obviously it never panned out.
Well, you could see the sun for a long time, just was not over our heads. That was what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a strange thing. Cause again, Venice invested 3+ hours to get down there, and they banged it before 8 o'clock. I thought that was kind of early.
I agree with you so much on that, because if you remember this, I know that you said you want to talk to John later about the weather, but just from my vantage point, it's so frustrating through this season so far, because week 1 got delayed. The beginning of the game got delayed. That was week 0, I guess you would say. And then week 1, Manatee St. John's Bosco was completely at the halftime, completely rained out. And actually that coach, Jason Negro, said, I brought my guys a long way, and we're going to have to try to get this game in, when you're right. Spending that much money and time. But they couldn't, obviously, with the rules the way FHSAA has it set up, and I, it's safety, so I understand that completely. But Friday night that was a tough one right there for them to pull the trigger, like you said, prior to 8 o'clock. We just they didn't really even give it a chance. And but John just gave me a little information I didn't know. Maybe they saw something later on that I didn't know.
Yeah, no, it's and again, it's the referees get together. Both ADs were there, both coaches were there, and I think as it sort of transpired, there was a kind of a feeling that every time that lightning was going to hit, it was 30 more minutes to wait, and so they were just kind of concerned that they would be sitting there for a long period of time, and then once a certain time hit, they were never going to get a game in. So I was surprised of the decision, but again, I do understand in some ways what they were all going for. I think the other part of it is that week 11 is available to both teams, so I think that sort of lends itself to say, well, why don't we see where we're at, moving forward in the season, and if we can revisit this and it's worth for both of us to do that, then we'll go ahead and pursue it that way. So I think that was a little bit of it as well. But yeah, just the problem with the weather, like usual.
What would that date be on week 11? Is that Halloween?
I believe
No,
that
I think it's the next week. I think it's November 7th, right?
That. Yeah,
Okay.
November 7th time. Yeah,
Okay.
So that would be about the time. So, and again, that'll be to be determined. So I would say somewhere around week 8 or so, you probably would see that how they would be starting to think about revisiting that if that's what they need to do. So
would it still be in
still in Miami Northwestern, still at Traz-Powell. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
I know you get a chance to talk to John, and you will tomorrow on your your podcast with him with the coaches show and that. What are his thoughts exactly? I mean, I saw some quotes in the paper. How about how unfortunate it is. He almost did right out of the Coach Speak handbook. But what is Coach Peacock thinking? I mean, because this could be, both teams losing the first game. If they lose another one down the road, this could be a game that they really need to have.
And therein lies it. It's really not. So what I can tell you that if one team really needs it, the other team will say okay. You know what I mean? If that's the case, and then of course if both need it, they're obviously that they're both on point with that. Because you're right. Because moving forward with the schedule, and you're missing a game, those points that add up for where you're seated in the regional scenario, and of course the semifinal as well. That means a lot. I mean, we go looking at Venice in the past. It really helps to play 4 games at home if you can do that. And in the playoffs, it's an enormous advantage to have that happen. And the way the schedule is set up and how it's set up with the difficulty is really meant for that scenario to play out that way. So we'll see. I think that he's comfortable moving forward, but having that sort of something in his back pocket in case he needs something. And I would say the same thing for Miami Northwestern's coach as well is something I think they both are willing to take the risk and see how far they can go with it.
All right. Again,
Coach Peacock did want to share one thing. He did. I jumped on the bus with him, and it really was one of those pockets where it started raining hard, and I jumped on the bus with him, and there was just me, him, and the bus driver on there. And he said, the level of frustration I have right now is that, we lost last week and we had to sit through a week of that. And now we've got to sit through another week of this. So, that was weighing heavy on him as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. When you're set ready to go and those kids are all prepared to go, it's tough to see them have to just get the plug pulled. So that's tough.
Yeah.
All right, let's do our local high school football recap. There was one Thursday night game, and it looks like there's going to be a Thursday night game almost any week if it involves Lee County. Apparently, they're still having officials issues down there, having enough to do it all on Friday night. So Lemon Bay's game was moved to Thursday. They fought valiantly. They fell behind 27-8, but came back, but fell just short 34-26 on Thursday. The game that really raised my eyebrows, and John, you and I kind of talked about this last week. Manatee and Southeast played.
Yeah.
It was a close game for about 3 quarters, and then Manatee pulled away at the end, 42-14. Not really indicative of the game, but once again, Manatee establishing themselves in Manatee County.
Yeah, no doubt. Matt, I don't know if you were following that game or not this week, but I thought that Southeast was ready to make the step to beat Manatee, especially how Manatee had struggled on offense early in the season. Even though they played a tough schedule to that point, I still thought that was to see 2 goose eggs on the board for them. I thought that Southeast with Coach Bradley was going to have a chance to really make that move up the ladder as far as who's going to be the king of Manatee County, and it looks like Manatee just figured some stuff out. Have you looked into that at all? Have you seen anything about those two squads?
Well, I have a good relationship with Coach Green up at Manatee, and one thing he shared with me, and this was the rain delay we had during the Bosco game. He said, we're front loaded. We have a lot of our hard games right at the front, beginning of their schedule. He said it's going to begin, and we're going to get a lot better. We're going to get a lot more experience. That defense, they lost a lot off last year's defense. Ronan Dangler's back, and he's really. I am so impressed with him as a player. He doesn't get a lot of the credit that he deserves for that defense. He really is an excellent football player and well coached and everything. But I honestly believe that Manatee's going to take off now that they've got that out of the way. And Logan Rogers is a good quarterback. Jaquan Williams, great wide receiver that they have. Manatee's going to be. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. Not on the Aquinas, 16-13 semifinal. I don't think they're going to be quite that good, but they'll be a lot better than a lot of people were throwing dirt on them after 2 weeks, and it's like that. I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think the scores just sort of lends you to believe that. Well, what's happening, and then you see what happens again in a rivalry game with all the emotion that's attached to that Seminole Hurricane game, and coming out with a nice victory was probably going to get that program right back on track.
There are a lot of good teams in Manatee County. Palmetto finally got a game in the books. They beat Tampa Newsom team 42-20, and Parish Community for the second straight week serving bagels. They beat Bayshore 40-0 after Bayshore surprised Sarasota the week before. Those two teams look like they're on a collision course.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Matt, I haven't been to Parish Community. I really, to be honest with you, they're a bit away from where we're all centralized in somewhat. But they're doing something very, very productive, let's just call it, up at Parish Community. Have you any insight into that as well?
Unfortunately, obviously, I'm trying to get my footing under me for the area, and I have not had an opportunity to get to Parish yet. Or there's a couple of them I've branched out slowly, but Sarasota Christian, and I'm going to get over to ODA and do that. But I have not had a chance to get to Parish, and I've heard a couple of people talk about how they have a really good team as well, and I got a chance to meet them up there at the media days there. So hopefully in the future I can get over there and give them some coverage as well.
Yeah, Lakewood Ranch, another team in Manatee County. They shut out Seminole 42-0. That's another team that seems to be on the rise. There's a lot of really good football teams in Manatee County. I don't think there's any question about that.
No doubt at all. You mentioned a little while ago, Matt, that you said about ODA and the Sarasota Christian. I thought a big win for Sarasota Christian this week over St. Stephen's. Again, Coach Ben is really just introducing 11-man football last year, and he's already kind of conquering some of the big boys in that classification. I know he played ODA tough last year as well, so I like keeping an eye on him. He's a really enthusiastic guy. He's got a little email he sends out every week that I got being a part of now, and he really is promoting the product, and I think the kids really like him a lot. He's got that genuine enthusiasm that's not made up. It's really what he really loves what he's doing, and I think it's contagious with that team.
Their quarterback Ben Milliken and I had a conversation about him, and he, literally everything starts and stops with Coach Ben. Like the fact that he brought them. He got a kid like Ben Milliken, who was a big-time basketball talent, to come to Sarasota Christian to play football when they didn't even have an 11-man team. Matter of fact, when he got there, they didn't even have 8-man. They were playing flag football his first year. So, Coach Ben kept his word, and Ben said that was really big for us to get the type of players that we want to be able to compete on that level as we get, start with the flag, get to 8-man, and now to 11. And when I talk to those players, to a person, they love him, they love his energy, and I really think that Sarasota Christian is definitely on the rise for sure.
And the creativity that came with being an 8-man coach, from being an 11-man coach. Now it's got to. I mean, better coach. Does it make you a better coach? I don't know, but it sure opens your eyes to certain things, how certain things can work, and you're like, you know what, I can apply this when I got 2 more tackles and another guy here. I think it means a lot. So. I'm again keeping an eye on Coach Ben, getting that very enthusiastic email once a week. I enjoy it, and I'm rooting for him a lot to see if he can keep on moving that program forward.
Me too. Yes.
Booker, off their trip to Auburn, Alabama, and taking one on the chin, played another very tough team, Tampa Berkeley Prep. They're always really good. Booker came out ahead 29-23 to get into the win column. I think that was a big game for them. I think they needed a bounce back after that humbling loss in Auburn.
Yeah, because Booker starting the season off, there's a bit of a shakeup. You lose Coach Littles, a couple of things happen here and there. You're kind of you didn't really have to reset everything, but you had to kind of get things back on track, more cohesiveness, and the culture of what's going on there. So getting that win probably did mean a lot to them at this point, because there's always been a ton of talent at Booker. It's just a matter of being able to hone it and get it focused in the right direction. Because I mean, if you would ask me, over the years about, perennial powers, it would have been Booker in this area. That would have been the one that you would probably have thought would be the one to spawn all that. And I think Coach Little's got it going in the right direction, and hopefully we'll see if it continues to go that way for them.
I think Carlos Woods is he is doing a fantastic job. They have so much talent. And like you said, he came in, this was a quick move for them with him to take over the head job, but they have so much talent. There's no way that they're not going to be there. They're a really good team, and they have the players to back it up. So I think by the end of the year, he'll have that figured out for sure.
Yeah, they front load their schedule as well. So does Cardinal Mooney. Played the kickoff classic at Aquinas, played them very tough, and then had a team from Cherry Creek, Colorado come in, riding a 14-game winning streak. They made it 15, but it was a really good game, 24-21. Cherry Creek did end up winning. We talked to the coaches at Cardinal Mooney when we did the media days, and they were very adamant about the fact that they wanted to schedule this really tough. They wanted to be more ready for the playoffs than they were last year.
And Cherry Creek, I know a little bit about Cherry Creek. My son-in-law coached at Legend High School in the Denver area, and played Cherry Creek in the championship last year. Cherry Creek is a perennial power, one of the two big powers in the state, and so they came in to Cardinal Mooney, and I with not any trepidation or fear to come in there and play a local team, and the score indicates that both teams were ready to go. I didn't really get to hear much about how the outcome came out, but to see the score that close, they were probably two very, very evenly matched football teams.
Yeah, I'm with John on that one. I did not get a chance to even hear one thing about what happened with Cardinal Mooney on Friday, sadly.
Some other games, you mentioned the Out of Door Academy win over Cambridge Christian, 28-7. In the Battle of the Riverviews, Sarasota Riverview, nice victory after the tie with Naples at the half, and according to Max Preps, that's an official tie, at least at this point. Yeah, so they're now 1-0-1 as they spanked Tampa Riverview pretty good, 42-7. Coach getting his first win following the birth of his child.
Yep, no doubt. Mark Christiani, good friend of mine and a good friend of a lot of the people in the community. He's going to bring a heck of a lot of enthusiasm. He's got the ability to sort of engage with his players in a manner that they respond to him. Very loyal, being a position coach at Venice and seeing how his loyalty with his players and what was going on, and just a laugh a minute kind of guy. Outside the football field, he's a fun human being to be around. Wishing him the best with that, whatever happens.
I got a chance to run into him at the Riverview Venice volleyball game Tuesday night, and he's still coaching. He's still him and Coach Shannon are over there. They're going over things the whole time. He's got the little baby in his hands. Yeah. Just so much energy this guy's got. It's just incredible. Yeah.
That's him.
He does. And I really want to say this because I didn't give I didn't have an introduction to Riverview High School like I wanted to, and then I've since had that introduction, and Coach Christiani and everything that they're doing there, their players, that really the only blip on their resume right now is a 50-49 opening game against Port Charlotte. And I'm going to tell you, Port Charlotte and that quarterback over there, I'm sure we're going to probably get to that too. But if that's the only thing that Riverview has to lose, they're a really good team. They are well coached, great players. I love the program for sure.
Yeah, Port Charlotte laid another one on a Lee County team, 63-7 over North Fort Myers. They've scored 125 points in their first two games and only allowed 7. So that must have been, that's a feather in Riverview's cap, the fact that they were able to go toe-to-toe with a team that both John and I think make a serious run at a state championship.
That is so funny that you added the points up like I did. Yeah, I went the route and included the kickoff classic as saying 175 points, almost 60 points a game, and so looking at that and knowing that, I don't know if Port Charlotte has a chip on their shoulder. I think they feel like they've knocked on that door, and that regional final has really kind of been tying them up in knots. And usually it's games where they are in a slugfest that seem to get them. So if they can throw points up there, I mean, it's and you go out there and you can lay 50 on anybody. Man, that's such an advantage to have that opportunity to do that, because that's gonna you never get down. If you're down 14, you're like, well, we score 50 a game. They can come back, and they feel like they can come back. It is that belief factor that they've got to get, and I think that Coach Ingman with his longevity there as well, establishing the community, great home field advantage. Another thing he needs to get is having those games at home if he can. Really looking forward to watching Port Charlotte all season and see how they progress.
Yeah,
they've got it.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Matt.
I just thought Coach Ingman he's doing a fantastic job, and he is a Port Charlotte guy. But when you got Logan Flaherty back there, boy, it would really make my job really easy to have somebody like that for sure. And I'm not trying to take anything, because Coach Ingman is fantastic. Well, Logan Flaherty he's in the league, but he is a really good player.
If you haven't watched him play, he's got a sort of he knows what he's doing all the time kind of mentality. Like I said, you watch him and he knows when to scramble, when to roll. He's got the play still going in his head, but he's got the athleticism to make something happen when he needs to or where he needs to. And that combination at quarterback for a young guy like he is, I mean, it's a big deal to have that coach and that quarterback leading the way.
He told me, this is what he told me, that the biggest thing for him to come there and fit in the way that he has and just do what he does is because the older players, when he got there, just embraced him. They said, it doesn't matter how old you are or what, just come in, and they made him feel like part. He told me it feels like I'm with my family when I'm playing football here. So it goes a long way to win games for him for sure.
I totally understand that, no doubt.
And there's a game we have circled a week from Friday. I know neither coach likes to look ahead, but Port Charlotte at Venice a week from Friday. That is going to be a Donnybrook.
I am so excited about that game for sure. Yes.
And from my perspective, last year, both teams showed enormous respect to each other. I always kind of put a little pin mark next to something that I think was what makes the season for me. And it's not something that happens during a game or anything like that. It's just really something that happens outside of the game. And to watch the genuine respect that was given by both teams after that game was over was fantastic. They didn't need a handshake line. They all walked out together to just shake each other's hands. And the coaches from both teams were having conversations and engaging each other. And it was a really cool moment that was very spontaneous. It wasn't choreographed by anybody. It was just spontaneous that both teams went ahead and said, that there was an I respect you moment with that. So looking forward to see how that translates to this year. And again, it should be a great game. It should be a really good game.
One other score to note, Charlotte got in the win column as they beat Northport 48-0. Looks like it's going to be another long year for the Bobcats. They've got a new coach, and unfortunately, things have not gone off to a very good start. They have not scored a point yet in their 2 games.
And it's tough when you're trying to get out of that freelance category. You know what I mean? Because when they get out of the freelance category, you know where they're going to end up. Right. They're in the district with Riverview, Sarasota, Venice, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's
going to be tough.
Coach Gale's putting together though. I really had a good talk with him at Pinellas Park and what he did up there. He's he's really, I think he's the guy for the job. Plus, he's a Northport guy, so he's home. That's what he told me. He's home, and I think I trusted him for sure.
And that's a good thing because that's what that needs to happen. There's got to be a lot of times when things get reassembled and put together, it's from somebody who's been from within, who understands the community, already has some respect from the community, and they're willing to support him because he's got to gather that community around him a little bit as well to get that program to sort of rise up where it needs to be. Again, talent laden. Northport's always been talent laden. You'll hear things we can say it here on a podcast, but everybody's always like, they rob all the kids from Northport. Northport kids are going to Port Charlotte, they're going to Charlotte, they're going to here, there, wherever it may be. And so I think that if you can galvanize the community and the kids see that they want it, then you're going to have something special potentially at Northport. Just got to be patient at this point.
Yes. 2 games I have circled for next week, guys. Venice home opener for the regular season. Bishop Rowe, that was a wild game last year. I think it was 71-56.
Yes.
I was expecting a basketball to come out during that game. Unbelievable. Both teams went up and down the field all night long. And Palmetto and Riverview, that should be a very good game. Again, Palmetto is one of the better teams in Manatee County. I'm looking forward to that Manatee Palmetto game down the road. But this year is another litmus test. Boy, Riverview certainly has come out of the gate with Port Charlotte. I know it was a kickoff classic, but then Naples. And then, last week they took it to Riverview, and now another very tough game for Coach Cristiani and the squad.
And Matt, I'll ask you a question too about this. Sometimes you can do what some of the schools have done locally now, and go and play somebody on the East Coast of Florida, or go north to Auburn, Alabama, or have somebody come in from Colorado to kind of challenge your team and have a sort of a signature win, if you want to call it that. But Riverview's taking the tack of saying, let's play all the tough teams in the area, because they are taking on a lot of those tough teams, and their schedule will play that out. I guess maybe from one way or the other. Would you prefer one way or the other yourself, or what do you think is there one way better? Just that's just choose your way you want to do it.
I really like the way that Coach Cristiani is doing this, and the way that he is setting this up is just like his personality. I happened to be walking through the locker room at Venice one day, and I swear, like I said, I'm new to this area. I'm not new to high school football or sports, but I'm new to this area. And I did not know that Coach Cristiani was at one time a Venice Indian.
Yeah.
And not only is he a Venice Indian, but he was a prominent Venice Indian, because his picture is on the locker room in there with all of the stars. Trey Burton, all of the stars that are up there in the locker room. Yeah. So, but that's just his personality right there. He just doesn't. I'm going to attack this and just go with it. And they made a switch over there at quarterback, and it benefited everyone, because Anthony Miller was the quarterback, and they moved him into a more athletic role as the wide receiver, and then they moved Parker Nippert into the quarterback. And I think this was a perfect storm for what Riverview High School needed for their football program. Everything, the way it's all coming together, and before the end of the season, they're gonna make a definite playoff run. And what I've seen, and I'm going to that game. I like to try to get to the big games. Not that Venice Bishop Rowe isn't a big game, but that Port Charlotte Riverview is going to be a really good one.
Yeah, you're right. I would probably be inclined to think the same way too, because it's 2 really good local teams, and you want to see them how they face each other. I think that would be a good one, because again, Palmetto, I mean, they're doing it right. I guarantee they're doing it right up there. They got a great coach.
Palmetto.
That guy.
That's all right.
Yeah, not Port Charlotte, Palmetto. Yeah.
I invented 2 new coaches last week, so don't worry about it. It's a minor little thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, we're gonna be done with high school. You want to stick with us as we go through the college?
Absolutely, I'd love to. Thanks, guys.
All right, so let's transition into college football. What a weekend of college football this past weekend. We had 3 top 10 matchups. And ironically, and this is, I can give you a little preview of what's bugging me. Why do we have preseason polls? I mean, what are we basing it on? In all seriousness.
Exactly.
But anyway, you had Texas, Ohio State. You had LSU and Clemson in the battle of Tigers in Death Valley. And boy, did ESPN just beat that dead horse to death. And then you had Miami and Notre Dame last night. and that's Sunday night as we record on Monday night. 3 tremendous games. But to me, and listen, I'm a Seminole apologist, so I will throw that out there. To me, the biggest shock, and I'm still in shock, is Florida State not just beating Alabama, but physically beating Alabama up in Tallahassee. Your guys' thoughts?
Matt, take this first. Go ahead.
So that really is, to go back to what you said about the preseason ranking. If you just look at this, by itself, was Alabama way overrated at 8? Yes, they are. Obviously, they've seen that. But they were physically beaten, like you said. It wasn't just in the trenches. It wasn't just the corners. I mean, they were jamming. Everything they did was more physical. That game was never in question, it was pretty impressive for Florida State to come out and just dominate them like that. I think that, in my opinion.
I sat in a room full of Seminole fans who were walking in with, I'm just here for the pulled pork and the cold beers, and I'm see what happens here. And there's always that glimmer of hope, new quarterback, whatever, the new offensive coordinator. And to watch them come out of in that game, and about midway through the second quarter, I was like, I don't think Alabama's going to beat them. And I look at Alabama from the perspective of effort. I looked at again the physicality of it. Even little things that you notice, like they look disheveled. They look like their jerseys weren't fitting them right. Nothing looked right with them. The quarterback Simpson, he looked like he was a 14-year-old freshman at the high school level with his learn how to throw a football. He was just not ready for that situation. And by the way, I know Tallahassee is a tough place to play, but they weren't going into the Lions' den, of something that was 5, 8, 10, 20 years ago, for that matter, with Florida State. And they walked in there and they didn't put any effort into it. And the look, I've never been sold on Coach DeBoer as the guy at Alabama. I thought he was a wrong hire. I think it was a rush to get the shiny penny that was out there at Washington. And I didn't, I just thought there's a certain unique individual who has to coach Alabama. You have to know the culture, know what's going on down there. It's not like any place he'd ever been, and he stepped into it. And this hire, to me, was another Washington State hire by Alabama. When they hired Mike Price to go from Washington State to Alabama, and he made it 8 days because they went to the strip club in Pensacola and didn't make it anywhere further. That I think this is what would have been the same kind of scenario with Alabama. So Alabama will win football games, but I think Alabama is going to be a team that's going to be looking out from outside the playoffs for the first time in a long time. And Florida State, mind you, they had an unbelievable game. I think they're a better than 500 football team as I saw on Saturday. But let's not get too crazy yet. There's a lot of things to face ahead of them that they're going to struggle with. And so I think that there'll be a very competitive, very exciting brand of football, especially with Gus Malzahn calling the plays.
Yeah. Tom Castellanos, wrote a lot of checks in the preseason, and he cashed them on Saturday. He is brash to the nth degree. And my only concern as a Florida State fan is, when things go bad, is he going to go to that same guy that was at Boston College and decide to, push all his chips in and leave the table? I hope he's matured from that situation. I really do, because, living up here in the Boston area, I was a little close to that. But off to the nice start. And it was the decision making. That was the thing that to me stood out, is that he 9 times out of 10 made the right decision. He had a lot of RPOs, and he made sure that the play that they ran was the play that was going to be the most successful.
Yeah, Florida State was really aggressive in that game, and like I said, we had dinner at Prime on Saturday night. We were watching that game on there, and every time, I seen them come back and they cut it to 7, and then and they come right back down. Florida State, and just the aggressive. it felt like last year with what was the quarterback that Florida State had?
Which
transfer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like this was a completely different team. Like it did. Like I got introduced to the Florida State team last year, and I'm like, whoa, these guys aren't very good. This team, like John said, I don't know if they're a college football playoff team or not. I don't know that obviously after this game, but they're a lot better than they were last year. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Well, listen to this round robin with state teams. USF plays at Florida this week. Gators should win, but certainly USF made a great account of themselves on Thursday night in a standalone game, and certainly Alex Golish has that program going in the right direction. Then Florida has LSU. Then Florida has Miami. Then Florida State has Miami. That is quite a little 4-week stretch.
It is.
That's going to tell us a lot about the teams in this state.
Absolutely right. From a recruiting perspective, it's going to be huge. And all these teams are setting some pretty high goals for themselves. Florida State now as well, after the Alabama win, they can probably put some bigger goals out there as opposed to what they already thought they were going to be. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting situation. I think the Florida-Miami game could be just an unbelievable football game. I really think that there's down there in Miami, which that can be a pretty hostile territory. You'll have probably the sellout of the for sure sellout is when Florida plays at Miami. That's Miami's for sure sellout because they have a hard time selling out sometimes, but Florida fans will pack it in. It won't be Florida, Georgia 50-50, but it'll be a lot of Gator fans down for that one. And you and I both, Rich, we're not totally sold on Coach Cristobal at this point yet, as far as his field generalship, I guess you would call it. A little bit of that game with Notre Dame, I thought he made some sketchy conservative calls in that situation. But when those two teams play, that'll be a really good one. And then Florida State is on the rise as well. Man, what a game that's going to be again if they both come in there playing hot.
Yeah, you mentioned the Miami thing, and Matt, I saw you shaking your head when John was talking about Miami in the second half after they got up 14, got really conservative and nearly gave that game away. They were riding the crowd, and they had a good portion of the crowd. And certainly the Irish are always going to travel, but that place was rocking last night. And we got down to about 4 or 5 minutes to go, and the game is tied. That was if you're a Miami fan, you started hand wringing a little bit.
For now, 21-7 right after. I mean, they took the lead in 14-7 in the break. They come right out, run down the field. I said, this guy, I know who Carson Beck was. Everybody does. You see him at Georgia. He's a good quarterback. But it almost, like you said, they almost handcuffed him in the second half. They kept running the ball, running it right up the middle, and it was getting stopped. And we're not getting to the edge. They're not throwing the ball again. But, they were able to pull that out. And Miami is I want to tell you, because when I was doing my area team, my choice for all area team, I looked at the ESPN top 300, and I know that I counted 21 players in the top 150 that are either going to Florida or Miami over the next, year or two.
Yeah.
They're those two programs. And then they got Chauncey Kennedy. I mean, Florida State's building. The state of Florida is set up for, not only great high school football, but college football for sure.
The resurgence of what it was, let's say, through the 90s, where they were sort of just taking turns with, the recruiting classes were always top notch. Good coaching was happening there. It was just really interesting. And now you sprinkle in UCF and USF as well into that mix as well. And trust me, there's enough players to go around for 5 of those programs, because you can't watch. I say for years, you can't watch pick one right now. You say, I'm going to watch ESPN 2. It's somebody from the ACC or whatever playing. There'll be a kid from Florida on that school, or on that team. So if you look at it, there's a lot of athletes that come out of this area or come out of this state in particular they're littered all over the place. And Florida, Miami, and Florida State can sure get their lion's share. It'll be interesting to see how this season plays out for all those schools and where they take it with the next few years, especially.
Yes. I don't want to gloss over the Texas-Ohio State game. At times it was a little bit of a tough watch. I think both coaches realized the defenses that they were up against, and they really dialed it back. Both quarterbacks weren't 100% comfortable, But can we pump the brakes on the Arch Manning Heisman Trophy celebration? Basically handing him the trophy.
100%. Everybody's saying Arch Manning's coming out. It's the Arch going to be Arch Manning? No way. He's not ready, and he knows it. Listen, the family, none of them ever went out early. I mean, Peyton was going to be #1 overall pick. Eli, same thing. They played for 4 years. They're going to get their education. That's the family credo. They're going to go do that. And Arch is a good player, but he has nothing he's learning now on the job. He didn't play any. He played minor mop-up stuff in leading up to all this stuff. And so I thought that while you said it was very conservative in regards to the play calling and whatnot, I don't know if that's at least in Ohio State's case, if that's how they're going to have to win football games this year. That they're going to be a little bit more close to the vest, a little bit less of that wide open situation. Now, it may take a little time to get to that situation, but it definitely it's room for concern for Ohio State and Texas. If they were putting all their stock into Arch and Sarkis was buying into that same hype, it's going to be a long. In Texas, got to play a tough schedule too. Everybody does, and so while I think they're both playoff teams, this is not dismissing who they are. They were not #1 and #3, and that goes back to your argument, Rich. We really need to have. Are we just betting on what they were last year and hoping we can figure out how it's going to work this year? That game proved that to be where the polls were useless in regards to how both teams performed.
Useless, yes, absolutely. The Florida, I mean those are two really good teams, and like you said, John, they're going to be there at the end. They are, and then they've got a lot. They've got 11 more weeks, almost 3 full months to get this right. But a lot of people had already handed the Heisman to Arch Manning, and I know the game of football. And if you couldn't, and I'm not throwing shade on Arch Manning. I don't know. He might end up being a really good player. I don't know this. But what I do know is you were not able to beat out
Ewers.
Quinn Ewers. He wasn't able to beat him out. So not saying that he's not a good quarterback, because he is, but he was playing the position that he was supposed to and learning and all that. And, he took it. That defense is a battle-tested defense at Ohio State. They've got to have to get some things figured out with Arch for sure.
No doubt.
But to me, the most impressive SEC team in a moderately okay weekend for the SEC was LSU. LSU going into Clemson. And they won by 7. But really, I didn't think Clemson had a shot to win that game after halftime. I mean, when LSU came out and scored, tied the game, and then scored again to go ahead, I really thought the game was over, and LSU really showed me something here. Their schedule is not easy. They got Florida in a couple of weeks. That's going to be one hell of a game, but a real nice way to start the season for the Bengal Tigers.
Well, if you go back to the preseason thing again, that's when it is college football. Before the season, they handed the Heisman to Arch Manning and the national championship to Clemson before the season even started. And then I also saw last week how the most disappointing team for the whole season will be the LSU Tigers. And I'm like, they come out and they looked really good against the team that everyone thought was going to win the championship. The SEC is maybe not Alabama, but everybody else. I don't know about Alabama yet. It's too early to tell with them. But the rest of the teams in the top of the SEC are really good teams. They are.
I sort of picked LSU last week in regards to winning the championship, but I did say they might lose to Clemson, but they still might win the SEC, because I thought it would be a tough start. And Brian Kelly has traditionally been a slow starter with his teams. He did start slow, but only a half a game. The game was a slow start. He got it going in the second half. They played their brand of football. Clemson tried to go toe-to-toe with them. They just weren't up to that task. Right. Maybe some different game planning, maybe a little something different. I think they wanted to see what they could do, and a good game. Great. Had a really. I enjoyed that football game way more than I enjoyed the Texas-Ohio State game, to be honest with you. And
yes.
And because the atmosphere was a little different, it was just a little bit of a night game, whatnot. But both those teams will do well. I think the ACC is a little down this year overall. So I think Clemson will still come out of there. But LSU, now they got to ride that wave because they're going to, you're right, Rich, they face a very tough schedule. And so coming out again, and the thing is, you come out of a schedule with like they're going to play with 2 losses, golly, that's pretty good when you're considering where you got to play some of these games. And there's an attrition rate, now with these tough schedules and everything else, you have to talk about injury. You got to talk about a lot of different things that go into that. So there's definitely going to be some beat up teams that come in from out of the SEC, but battle tested, and we'll see how that plays out down the road.
Sure. Guys, as good as the first week was schedule wise, the second week, it's not that good. I mean, when you're hanging your hat on Iowa State as the game of the week, and listen, I think Iowa State's got a real shot. We talked about this last week, John. I think Iowa State's got a real shot to represent the Big 12 in the playoff. But they're going to have to win this game, and Iowa owns them. So this is I know last year was a 1-point game. This is going to be a pretty tough game for Iowa State. I mean, I looked at the schedule. The second best game on the schedule, in my opinion, is UCF Florida, and that's an 18.5-point spread.
Well, it's got some. There's some definitely some interest in some of these games, but no, you're right. And this is what happens with that when you have week 1 with all these top-notch games spread out over a big period of time. This is the week that if you're in front of the TV set, you start off on ESPN, and then you start to surf to find out where everybody is playing, and then you watch the crawl, and you're like, I'm going to that channel because that's what usually happens. And you'll get
upset alert.
Yeah, you'll get a great one somewhere down the line, and you'll get to watch that one. But there's no sit down and lock this channel in kind of game this week at all. There's none of that.
Matt, what's your game this week?
I have an upset alert for you right now. And I don't know how much of an upset it is, but it is a little bit. I like Oklahoma over Michigan for sure. I like Oklahoma at home against the University of Michigan for sure.
Well, I thought that the look at the new quarterback, Mateer, the kid who came from Washington State to Oklahoma, boy, he's got some moxie about him, and he's a runner and a thrower. He's kind of a gunslinger. And it's going to be interesting to see how Michigan's going to come out. They got to get that young guy. He looks the part. I mean,
he does.
He does look very good.
He's got to get some touch, though, guys. He's got to get some touch. Everything was hot coming out of his hand, Bryce Underwood.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that you're going to see. And Oklahoma has been very under the radar after early in the year here. So they could their names could start popping back up. Somebody had said, that the team just a little bit north of Texas, Oklahoma, was pretty happy to see there's a blueprint to beat Texas with. So coming up in a few short weeks, that'll be a game to watch with Texas and Oklahoma.
For sure.
All right, you're watching the 941 Sports Zone. Matt Geller is our guest from the Florida sports scene. Rich Spitaleri, John Massoni. And this portion of the Florida Sport or the 941 Sports Zone brought to you by Mighty Dog Roofing of Southwest Florida, locally owned, nationally backed, delivering exceptional roofing for homes and businesses all across the Gulf Coast. Call them at 941-251-4257, 941-251-4257. All right.
Hey, Rich, I got a question for you. I thought it was really cool to have football on Sundays. Is there something coming up that I need to know about? But football starting on Sundays again?
It actually starts on Thursday, and we got a Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday week in the National Football League. Let's go there, and let's go. First off, we haven't been on since the Micah Parsons trade. Jared, man, listen, this guy, he's a hell of a salesman. Well, he's going to have to sell that locker room because everybody in that locker room was in Micah's corner. And, I see Thursday coming up against Philly. I see a nasty beatdown coming.
What do you think, Matt?
I have a good friend of mine that's up from Michigan right now. And him and I had this, he kept telling me that there's, his son told him that there was rumblings of trading. And I know how the last couple of years, what he did with the CeeDee Lamb and then Dak Prescott, like you're going to, he loves the drama, the tension, that comes with it. And I told my friend Eric that I said the same thing. I said, don't even worry about it. They're going to sign. And then all of a sudden his son sent him a text the other day and he was like, no, they pulled the trigger on that. And I said, I thought to myself, what possibly would benefit him by doing that? But it's not even him. I mean, when it's all came out, really, the fact that Micah said that he didn't make the deal with his agent and all that, and and there was personal feelings. And once it turns personal, it does not matter, dollar amount or anything. This is personal, and he felt like he was disrespected, and that was. But sadly, I'm a Detroit Lion fan, and then Micah kept putting on his Instagram. There was little lions and stuff on there. I just knew he's going to Detroit. There was no doubt about it. When he went to the Rivals, I said, "Oh no, this is." That made a game that, probably led off in the win column for Detroit. Now this is a tight game, or a real tight game. And the division got a lot closer with that move as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
John?
Well, it's funny, with the NFL starting, again on Thursday, a little bit of the Micah Parsons story sucked a little bit of the wind out of the NFL beginning of the season. You know what I mean? Like there's not you can watch NFL 24/7, obviously. Something going on with free agency, something going on with this person, that person, what it may be. But, the energy that the NFL usually starts with, it lost a little bit of its kick. The college football season started up, and they 5 days in a row of college football, whatever that's worth. And then you come right into the season, and Micah Parsons is the biggest story out there. We're not talking about, hey, how's Patrick Mahomes going to be doing this year? Right. Even Travis and Taylor sucked a little wind out of the NFL, that kind of thing. So it's interesting to see them coming in without that normal giant burst that they do. Obviously, once Thursday comes around, and of course on Sundays you'll be right into the mix of it, and it'll be a fantastic show. But it's been a little bit of a whimper for the NFL this year with some of the stories that have been going on out there. And but I do believe that it's going to be a very interesting year, because parity is really, really, really creeping in to the NFL, where now you've got so many teams that are so close together. You're looking at some of the divisions. You just mentioned your division, Matt, with the Lions and the Packers, the Vikings, and now the Bears are making a move. These tiers of teams, there's a lot of really decent football teams. I'm not saying great, decent football teams, and then who's going to rise to the top of greatness and who's going to fall to the bottom really is dependent upon. It could be anybody in some cases. Injuries
in the NFC North, you could go 11-6 and not make the playoffs, which is wild to me. This past season, Detroit and Minnesota went right down to the end, and Detroit won it. 15-2, 14-3. But if you're not 14-3 in the NFC North, last season anyway, I think with the parity, they're going to come back a little bit closer this year. It's a tough division, but there's like you said, there's a lot of good football, and sadly for me, I know a lot of people are Eagles fans and they're flying high, fly Eagle fly and all that, but honestly, even me being a Lion fan, Philly is a good team. They're well coached. They have great players, and they're going to be tough, but so will I'm going to give a little hometown love. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a good football team. They really are. Everywhere around, they're a good football team, and the NFC is going to be a shootout this year for sure.
No question. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, you're right. The Buccaneers, they've sort of made some strides that, I'm watching how they're putting together their team, and offensively, and they've gone from what I would consider big question marks with Baker Mayfield coming from wherever he was from with the Rams after he was with the Cleveland Browns or whatever. I wasn't quite sure about that, and he's solidified himself as the number one quarterback. You've got playmakers in the backfield. You got one of the better wide receiving cores when Chris Godwin is back healthy in the league. So yeah, they're someone to reckon with in a relatively. If there's one division that might be a little weaker than the rest, that might be one of the weaker divisions out there at this point. That, and I think the AFC South is relatively weak as well. So those two divisions, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they do just curiosity wise. And I think that the area, they get so much support here. The Buccaneer fans are just they're out of their minds.
Rabid. They're rabid. They are.
Yeah. They get into it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play. Because I think that Todd Bowles I'm a Jets fan, Matt. I got to admit this to you, right? So I carry that terrible badge of honor with myself.
Well, you got Aaron Glenn over there now, so.
Yes, but I like that he came back to the fold. He understands the dysfunction of what's happening there, so maybe he can work his way through it. But Todd Bowles is the coach for the Jets, and he was nothing but disappointing in regards to his enthusiasm was sort of very low and that kind of thing. And I think that he came to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, back to them, and I think it was a really good opportunity for him to show what he really can do. With some patience, he showed himself as to be a pretty better than average head football coach in the NFL.
Yeah, and yet there's still people that want to get rid of him. He's just only won, 3 consecutive division championships.
Yeah, I know.
The Bucks have won the last 4 times. Some interesting games Sunday, divisional wise.
Right now,
We talked about Dallas, Philly. In Brazil, Kansas City and the Chargers. That's a big division game. Is Kansas City going to keep their chokehold on that division, or is somebody going to jump up? I think the Chargers had a rough offseason. It may not be them. It might be Denver. Who knows? I think the Raiders are going to be improved. Tampa Bay and Atlanta, playing a division game in Atlanta. And, all I want to see is Michael Penix Jr. stay upright, because the Bucs should be scared to death if Kirk Cousins gets in the game, because he tore them up last year. Nearly 800 yards passing in 2 games and in 2 Atlanta victories. So keep him on the bench. But you talked about your division there, Matt. You got the 425 feature game is Detroit at Green Bay. Packers are actually favored in that game by 2.5. And it looks like Micah Parsons might have to get an epidural to be able to play. Apparently his back injury was not a fake thing. It was actually a real thing. So,
right.
And then Monday night is the Vikings and the Bears. We're going to find out a lot really early about where these teams, at least at the start of the season, stand.
Yeah, the NFC North, sadly for me, is I would have liked that when Green Bay was just had free run and they were just doing whatever they wanted to do and nobody else could really. That's what I wanted for the Lions, and it seems like as soon as the Lions got some talent, and I'm a long-suffering Lions fan. I started there with Billy Sims back in 1979-80, and. I went all the way through, and I've been there 0-16. I've been Matt Patricia. I've been just a god-awful mess that's been the Detroit Lions for decades. And finally, Dan Campbell gets it turned around. And sadly, at the same time, it just seems like Green Bay's reloaded. And then now they got Caleb Williams in Chicago, and Minnesota was right there with us last year. But it makes good football. And there's, just the NFC – I'm not as studied as I should be about the AFC, but the NFC is really, if you can come out of there, you're very, battle tested for sure.
You've got a lot of teams that could go a long way in NFC, and you probably got about 4 in the AFC that you could really depend on. And you're absolutely right. 2 of them are playing each other, Rich. I was looking at the rundown as well. Baltimore
Sunday
and
Night
Buffalo.
Football.
That's a great start to the season.
Oh, that's a great game. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really great game. So that there might be something to see that could be your AFC championship game right there. So just to see that one be interesting. I think that I've been very sort of wishy-washy about what I think of Josh Allen. I mean, he's obviously the MVP. So, he's a good player, but I don't know if sometimes he's the reason they haven't gone further because I don't know if he knows when enough's enough with his own, you know what I mean? He's a little bit of a guy who wants to take everything on his own shoulders, and you can't do that. Look at Lamar. I mean, they're not the same guy, but they are in some ways, and they can only do so much. There's something with the other 10 guys on the offense that they got to sort of fit their way into it more in more crucial situations. You look at it. If the guys you look at who have done it over the years, the distributors like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes in the AFC show you how to do it, and it's not about you doing everything on your own. And I think that's where they have to learn a little bit. And once they do, the prototype quarterbacks, Hall of Famers that it took one guy never figured it out and one guy did were John Elway and Dan Marino. They're drafted the same year. And Dan Marino was the guy, screaming and yelling and throwing and everything led through Dan. Dan was unbelievable quarterback, but was only with his best years is when he had a running back that ran for 1,000 yards. And then you have John Elway, who it took Terrell Davis to get him to figure out how to win, and he won 2 Super Bowls with that. So these guys are in the same boat, in my opinion. They got to figure out how to let the rest of their team contribute so it's not all coming upon them to win it. I think it's noble, but it's foolish at the same time.
Well, I have PTSD when it comes to Josh Allen, because Detroit lost 2 home games last year. That's all they lost, and one of them was a beat down to Josh Allen. The other one was the Bucs came into Detroit and beat my line. So it was I'm a support. Definitely a fan of Josh Allen's for sure. The way you were able to, I mean, Detroit was a little bit banged up at the time, obviously, but if you go back a couple years ago, we literally had just moved to Florida. You remember that game against Kansas City, and Kansas City went down and scored with, like, I would say it was less than 4 minutes left to go in the game. And you think, man, this is over. And Josh Allen brings them back, and they take the lead, and he's headed to the Super Bowl, and literally
13 seconds.
Super Pat brought him back and won the game, and that was what separated him from maybe a Super Bowl win for him. So I think he's a good quarterback, and Buffalo is going to be right there again, like you're right.
I agree. It's just a matter of when it happens. It's going to be. I hope it does, because it needs to be a little more fresh blood. I like Kansas City. I like Pat Mahomes. I like everything about the way their whole thing is put together. But a little bit something different from the AFC wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Little Chiefs fatigue, John. Little Chiefs fatigue.
A little bit. I mean, it's not. It hasn't really. I don't dislike it, but hey, give me a little something different here.
Maybe they're not as hungry as they were. Maybe they've been fat and sassy. I'm going to fit that into this podcast, fat and sassy. But yeah. They have been. They've been good. They've been doing good for a long time, and maybe not everybody, but I noticed that some people on that team might be, getting a little comfortable with that championship trophy every year.
I agree. It's just human nature. At some point in time, you get a little complacent.
All right, 3 other games that I want to mention that fall under the radar. Aaron Rodgers going back to New York, Week 1. Well, the NFL schedule makers, they are to put together a plot, and yet this is like the 11th game that we're talking about. Yet
I think the schedule makers,
the Jets, isn't it?
Yes, I think the schedule makers, Rich, for the NFL. I think once they make the schedule, they go back to work for General Hospital, because they know how to make soap operas out of everything. It's like they put everything together a certain way, and Jets fan, obviously, would be. It's very ironic that here comes Aaron Rodgers, and I didn't dislike Rodgers in the attempt to do what he did at New York. Okay, the injury was never, that was just historic Jets situation, right? To have him play 4 plays and out for the season, and I think things fell apart around him. No fault to him. When you have an owner who goes in there and starts firing people and want to do whatever he was doing, it just didn't bode well. And I think he could have easily tapped out in the middle of the season and said, "Let somebody else do it. I'm not going to get myself hurt." So I'm not too terribly upset about that, but it would be very ironic for him to come into New York and beat the Jets and put the Steelers in first place right off the bat, and every Jet fan be going, "Why me? Why are you torturing me like this?" Right. So it definitely it could turn out that way. We'll see, but you never know. I mean, it would be totally the Jets to come out there and Justin Fields go out there and have the most fantastic game of his career, running for touchdowns, doing this. Breece Hall runs for 125 yards or whatever, and they come out 1-0 and they beat Rodgers and then lose the next 4.
That storyline's totally lost. Justin Fields was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
not too long ago.
That's insane, right? There he is.
It's total
guy. Yeah, they swapped quarterbacks. Yep, no doubt.
Cincinnati at Cleveland. The Browns have actually owned the Bengals. The Bengals have been getting off to atrocious starts, so much to the point that Zach Taylor played his ones almost all preseason in the first quarter, one game even into the second quarter, to try to change things up. This is a pretty important start for Cincinnati.
Who's Cleveland's starting quarterback?
Cleveland's starting quarterback is Joe Flacco.
Me and Joe Flacco, and me and Joe Flacco actually went to high school together. I'm just this guy really is back. He's just you can't keep him down. Cleveland is going to be there's going to be that's a really good game right there. So I really am gonna. I would like to know what you guys think about that actually. That game.
I'll give you this. Rich is right. Cincinnati has started off slow. Cleveland has owned them, and that's been sort of how it works. I think that there's so much pressure on Joe Burrow right now, and he's a very, very, very talented quarterback. Got weapons all around him, but they've got so much on him. It's hard for him to perform as perfectly as everybody expects him to, and their defense has been better than average, but has not shown up in some of the games where they needed to. And I think Zach Taylor is the guy who'll be on the chopping block very early. If they come out even 2-2, I think they're going to be like, what's going on here? Because I think they know that the window is closing financially. They got to pay everybody. They can't. Right. So it's going to be one of those situations where this is the year. And when you put that kind of pressure on the team, and it can easily just implode at some point in time.
See, I thought Hendrickson would be the one to be traded because the Bengals are just so piss poor at running things that I thought that he would be the guy that would be traded, not Micah Parsons. And really all they did was just throw a little more money at him. No extension, no nothing. They're done at the end of the year. So you got a very motivated Trey Hendrickson. At least that to me is a positive, because that defense, John, I think you're being very kind when you say they're slightly above average. That defense was Swiss cheese last year. I mean, Joe Burrow would have been MVP on any other team, and he was 9-8 and home for the playoffs. They got to get better on that side of the ball.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah. And then the other game, the stat of the weekend, I guess, if you will, if you're like to throw a couple of drachmas down on some games, Miami's at Indianapolis. Indianapolis has lost 13 consecutive opening games, and they're a 1.5 favorite against Miami.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. That's like a number that's whoever does the line, they're trying to coax money onto a certain side.
For sure.
Because they want that. They want that because they don't want everybody going to the Colts. It would be easy to say it'd be 14 in a row. They're who are they starting at quarterback again? It's because I know that
Daniel Jones. Jones.
Danny Dimes.
Yes.
So and it doesn't look very positive for the Colts, but and the Dolphins are just, I don't know what's going to happen with the Dolphins. Tua's a China doll. We know he can be hurt at any moment. You got to be careful with him.
When's Tyreek going to go off?
Right. And it seems like that team has never blended properly. They've got pieces, but the pieces don't seem to kind of work together. And they're always adding another piece that doesn't really fit the puzzle so well. Like throw it in here, give him another the guy, but get a corner and see what happens with him. And it doesn't really seem like there's a lot of adhesive kind of cohesion with them. And so we'll see it. And would it surprise me if the Colts pulled one off? No, it wouldn't. I just, that game one always seems to pull a couple of surprises. Somebody's not ready or somebody, something happens one way, the ball bounces the wrong way. Week one always has some interesting outcomes.
I'm going to look back at this and watch this again at a later date, but I'm going to go out on a limb here, John. It's not just to take brain surgery, but Indy's going to make it 14 in a row. They don't know. I'm not spoiler, but no, they're not really good. Not anyone, and Danny Dimes, you laugh, but Tua is a Chanda. He is. Somehow I think that Miami's going to figure out the way they are. I know. I have faith in them. They are going to get that figured out. That's a game that they need to win. That would be a bad loss for them to start out with that.
And I'll tell you that is right. That would be a colossal loss for them because they're trying to get up to a good start because there's some doubt as to what's going on there. So it would be a big problem for them for sure.
For sure.
All right, guys, we got to move it right along here. We ignored MLB last week, but it's now September. No more ignoring. Final month of the season. Got a couple of decent pennant races going on. The AL West is tight with the Astros and the Mariners. I don't think the NL East is over yet. Just when you think Philly's going to pull away from the Mets, they throw a 4-game losing streak in there, and the Mets somehow win 3 out of 4. Mets got Cincinnati this week. They could pretty much put the wild card away if they take 2 or 3 or sweep that and get to be 5 or 7 games up in that. I think that could be over. So this is a huge series for Cincinnati. In the American League, it's really funny that the Yankees are chasing Toronto. Toronto has kind of come down to earth, but every time the Yankees seem to get things together, and their schedule gets difficult. The Yankees beat up on the bad teams. Their schedule gets difficult as we go down the stretch, and I don't know what to make of the Red Sox. I mean, they are the Dow Jones of baseball. And living up here, you just listen to the fans. Oh, we're going to the World Series. We're not even going to make the playoffs. We're going to the World Series.
Right.
It changes about every 3 days. I think obviously Detroit is going to be setting up their pitching staff. I mean,
Right.
I think they're in the best position. Problem is, are they going to hit in the playoffs? Them and the Brewers are the two teams to me that have played really well in the regular season that I have some doubts in the playoffs because you need the bats to come through in the playoffs, and they've gone through some stretches where
I totally agree. It's the pedigree of it all. You know what I mean? Like you'd want to say, like the Brewers were on that roll, and they're like, oh, they're gonna gonna ride through the playoffs. Da 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 da. No, somewhere along the line, there's gonna be a toe stub. Something's gonna happen that way. The team I'm interested to see, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I like their uniforms. Who knows what it is? But I've been very enamored this year with the Padres. Okay, I just kind of like what's going on there. They seem to be, I think they got something that was kind of. I've been interested in them this year. The Brewers a little bit as well. But overall, can you think it could be another Dodger Yankee kind of a year? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking past where we're going to end up with stuff, but who knows what's going to happen? But somehow or another, it doesn't usually shake out where you get a small market team versus small market team in baseball. It seems like the big markets find some way to kind of creep their way back into the big show.
And definitely, when you have Shohei Ohtani, they all that can creep right back up in it. But I'm going to give a shout out to my hometown again, the Tigers. They, the best record in the American League. But one thing I gotta, I don't like. Unlike my friend Eric that I keep talking about, this guy right here is the biggest homer you're ever gonna meet. So whatever. But I'm gonna say this: I realize that pitching wins championships in the postseason and in October, and Detroit really struggles in that part right there. Scuba on the front end, their pitchers, their starting pitching is really good, and then they didn't really make a deal for bullpen help before the deadline, and I think unfortunately, sadly, if you told me I had to bet something that would matter, it would not be on the Detroit Tigers winning the World Series this year. They don't have the help. I don't think they have the depth down there, and I can definitely see a way for either the Yankees or Toronto, and somehow. Milwaukee is a good one, but they are hot. They're a really good team, and it's hard to pick against them for sure. It is. They're a good team.
All right, we're coming up to the final segment of the show.
We didn't tell Matt about this. Let's give him a little heads up.
Go ahead.
So what we do every week is we tell something. We pick. It's called What's Bugging Me. So if you got something in the sports world, or even just generally in speaking, we had Coach Peacock one time complaining about going to the grocery store. So I mean that was his problem.
That's Coach Peacock.
So back in the day. So we kind of pick something that's kind of off the top of your head, something that's bugging you about sports in general, or something you've run across in the last week. We kind of spout off about it a little bit, and then it gets out there to the social media world and see if anybody agrees with us or with our rantings and what we're upset about. So
right, yeah.
So what I'll do, Rich, is I'll go first.
Go ahead.
If you want me to, and then it'd be pretty simple stuff. So I said, remember what I said about the weather, right? The weather this time of the year sucks for high school football.
Yes.
It's terrible. It's just one of those things where, like our situation where we were both sitting a couple hundred yards away from each other, is one stinking cloud hung over that stadium. Yes. It was right there. It was if they would have said, hey, drive out 5 miles up the road and play the game, we probably could have. Yes. But it was one of those situations, and you get into long rain delays. You get all these different things that are going on, and the protocols are very necessary about emptying stadiums and doing all those different things. It has to be that way. But it seems to me, and I go, I say to myself, I can't remember when I was in high school that we had this many delays and rain, anything. I don't remember any of that. I mean, nothing at all. And it's just one of those things where you have to contend with. I absolutely hate it. I feel terrible for the players. I feel terrible for both teams. Somebody traveling, I don't care if it's from Manatee County to Sarasota County. It's just a terrible feeling to sit there and wait and wait and wait. And I think sometimes you don't get your best performances because of it. So while you want to have these great matchups early in the season to contend with the weather, it's almost like you would almost say like, hey guys, don't schedule a game that's 2 hours across the state, because the risk of what happened Friday night can happen at any particular time. It's just one of those things you just don't want it to happen. You feel sorry for them, and of course you feel sorry for the fans too, because they're trekking over there and doing all that stuff as well. So just one of those things that like I said, I feel bad about that situation. One more thing I wanted this real quick. What's bugging me also? It's a person who is bugging me, kind of bothered me. I cannot watch Shane Beamer coach a football team at South Carolina. I cannot watch it. It's like watching a manic, crazy cheerleader who got loose on the sidelines, and he can. I mean, every time somebody does something that makes a fair catch, he flips his headset up, and he whispers in their ear, like, what is he telling the guy? Great fair catch. You're going to get the next one to do it. I don't know what he's saying. If I was a kid, I'd be like, get your hot breath off of me and go. I'll do my job. He's out of his mind. And I can't watch it. It's hard for me to watch. He looks like he's about to have a massive stroke on the sidelines, and it's a 3-3 ball game. He gets excited over a 25-yard field goal like it's a game winner in the first quarter. Hard to watch. And again, all power to him. I don't think he's a bad person, but man, I can't watch that anymore. I got to turn the channel when South Carolina's playing. I can't watch
somebody brought something up. Going back to your first, what's bugging me? What if in Florida, and again, it's hard to do because you have recruiting and everything else, but what if in Florida they swapped football and basketball seasons? Well, basketball plays in August and September, and football plays later on when the weather's better.
Well, there was a lot of talk about, they talked about pushing the season to start October 1st because now you still have hurricanes, but you don't get this September roll out. Here comes the lightning, and it's not even ground to cloud lighting. It's some heat lightning off the coast, and it's in that cone of uncertainty or whatever it is. It's that
within
stuff.
The 10 miles, yeah.
The 10-mile deal. That's what gets you, and then having to wait 30 minutes every time the lightning strikes. I get you don't want anybody to get hurt. I get all that, but if it continues, it's gonna become a problem. One year you're gonna have some team that's got 7 games under their belt, and they're trying to make up games on a Monday and a Tuesday. You see what happened with hurricanes. It happens that way, but it's a lot, man. And I'm sure that somebody somewhere is thinking about it. If they want me to come by and give them some advice, I'd be more than happy to, because I sat in a lot of press boxes the last 17, 18, 20 years waiting for a rain delay to stop, getting the dirty look from the mom in a poncho who just came back in the stadium 5 minutes earlier. And I'm like, you got to leave again. Like it's my decision.
Right.
So anyway, it's a tough deal.
All right. What's bugging me, I kind of alluded to it earlier. Preseason polls. I think we just get rid of them. I mean,
yeah.
First of all, Ohio State won the national championship, and they've got just as much talent, maybe more on defense. How are they not number one until somebody knocks them off?
Right.
I mean, let's go there first. But I just think there's a bias that happens, and it's so hard, especially for a team that, Arizona State, perfect example. I mean, they had a tremendous run last year, but what if they lost to Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game? Then they're out. And the reason they're out is because they were picked 16th in the Big 12.
Right.
You math majors, go ahead and deal with that. But in all seriousness, I think the first poll should be right around when ESPN does their first college football rankings. I think it should be mid to late October. Let's let the thing shake out, and then let's start assigning numbers, because it just makes too many teams have to do too much, and it gives an advantage to Texas. It gives an advantage to Clemson, because they're not going to fall that far. The polls are going to come out tomorrow. They're still both going to be probably in the top 10.
I Everybody who lost might be still in the top 10.
Yeah.
All three of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't like the preseason polls. I think they need to get rid of them.
All right,
Matt, you got one? Did we give you enough time?
I'm going to give you a quick one. I really the preseason polls that just blows my mind how they do that. And like you said, it just gives somebody unfairness. But I want to tell you about the weather thing, John, because I lived in Michigan my whole life, been a sports reporter all these years. Like in the history of me covering high school football, maybe in over 20 years, maybe 2 lightning stoppages ever in Michigan. Now it's going to be snow at some point, but it's never going to be lightning and rain. So this is brand new to me in the last month, literally. Right. Like I never saw this coming, and I get ready for Manatee and Bosco, and I have it circled on my wall, these games, and I'm so excited to get to these games. And they're like, as soon as I pull in the stadium, they're like, oh, I wouldn't hold my breath. This one's getting short. And I'm like, okay, well, that was just a fluke. And then we get down to Miami, and it's like, well, it's not. And now hearing this from you, it's like, are we ever going to get a game in? Just one, just so like not. Yeah. That's what it's to the point where right now I'm concentrating on getting one game in completed without a rain delay. And when you have football and people make moves and decisions and it costs, and it's like, man, come on, we got to do better than this. So you talk about upset, John. I'm with you on that. I'm extremely frustrated. And I guess I just got to get used to it in Florida because this is definitely new to me.
You'll get lucky in some years where it's not as soggy in a lot of cases, but you'll find yourself on a Tuesday or a Monday tonight watching the weather report to see what's going on Friday, and you got your fingers crossed, and they say, "Hey, you got a little bit of dry air coming in here before the weekend." You're like, "Yay!" That means
right.
You feel better about it.
Go ahead.
What's going to happen, Matt?
Yes.
It's sometime in October. You're going to be sitting at the football field, and it's going to be the most glorious weather you've ever seen, with the sunset dropping over the back of the stadium, and you're like, "This is what this is what it's about."
Yes.
Then you get 8 weeks in a row of actually fantastic, the best weather you could ever ask for football for the most part, and you love every minute of it. But it's those first 3 or 4 weeks that you're trudging through fields with your shoes are wet. You can't your piece of paper you're writing on is it's just everything about it is a hassle. And get lucky if you can for
Sorry, John. I got to give a shout out to Dr. Rainey at Venice High School because him and he took me to show me the concession stands and took me and showed me all this stuff, and he's so proud of the press box and all this. But then he says to me in the side, he said, "Man, I looked at the weight radar." He said, "I don't see a dry Friday for a month." I got to tell you honestly, I said, "Man, this guy, there's no way he could know that." Man, Dr. Rainey, I apologize for even questioning you because he's spot on with everything that he said. So yes, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt about it. It's a pain, but hopefully it calms down. We'll see what happens.
For sure.
All right, gentlemen, that'll do it for this edition of the 941 Sports Zone. Again, Matthew Geller from the Florida sports scene. Thanks a lot for joining us and hanging with us the entire show. Certainly do appreciate it. Look forward to hooking up with you again when I hopefully head down in October or November and watch some very meaningful games in very nice weather.
This has been a fantastic. I had a lot of fun. I love talking football, as you can tell. You guys gave me a lot, but we didn't just do that. We did baseball too. So anytime you guys wanted to have me on, it would be my pleasure. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Hey, Matt, we'll do it. I'll text you some scores if you text me your scores on Friday.
You got it. You got a deal. Yes.
No
you
doubt.
got a deal.
All right, this and every 941 Sports Zone brought to you by Mighty Dog Roofing of Southwest Florida, locally owned, nationally backed, delivering exceptional roofing for homes and businesses across the Gulf Coast. 941-251-4257 is the number. 941-251-4257. Matt, thank you very much for joining us. John, as always, do this again next Monday night at 8 o'clock live. And then, of course, look for your favorite place to find podcasts, and we'll have this podcast for you coming up later on tonight. Until then, so long, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good.